Hello, welcome to Wind Up Wednesday. I thought for the next couple of video series we would talk about the deductive tasting format or blind tasting. That's something that a sommelier does to go through certifications and things like that. I thought a good form of attack would be to break it down into component pieces. The component pieces are sight, nose, you have flavors or the palate, and then sort of the structural components of the palate, acid, alcohol, that type of thing. So in this first series of video, I thought we would take a look at the sight component of blind tasting. It's a fun process. They call it a deductive format. It really is based on theory and what you've learned over the years. More the way I best describe it is, you're kind of saying what a wine isn't as opposed to what a wine is. So by eliminating some key attributes or recognizing some key attributes, you can narrow down your focus of conclusion to a wine and hopefully be able to tell grape varietal, country of origin, vintage, what the quality level is and those types of things. So it's kind of a fun practice. It's less of a parlor trick than people think. It really does take some dedication and study to develop the vocabulary, to develop the theory, and to deduce what isn't and what is. But let's begin at the begin, and that component piece is sight. So setting your stage for tasting is important. So today we have 2 white wines, 2 red wines. They have some different qualities that are obvious, and that'll be interesting points to talk about. But most importantly, you start with clean, polished glassware, no stains. Hopefully there's no residue in the inside of the glass to cause problems with tearing or whatever. You want good light, and you also want to have a nice white background in order to compare the wine to. So today when we're identifying sight, we're going to break it down into a couple component pieces. It's all very much part of the process. I thought we'd look at 2 white wines and then 2 red wines would have a little bit of contrasting features. And we can take a look and break down what those features are. So to properly sort of look and assess a wine, you want to hold the glass at a 45-degree angle. It gives you an opportunity to see through the wine and then look at the various parts of rim variation. Also give a little swirl so you can identify whether or not there's any tearing or stains or anything like that. That's all part of the process as well. So what we're looking for is sort of clarity, whether the wine is clear, hazy, turbid. I think you can see from both of these wines that they're pretty clear. You can see through them. They're nice and bright. There's a level of brightness that goes through hazy, bright, day bright, star bright. And this is just a sort of a function of how much light is reflected back at you. The brighter, the more reflective the wine is, the brighter it is. And then, we look at color. So we're looking at white wines, obviously, but within white wine, you have, variations of color, straw, yellow, gold. And then they have secondary colors of silver, green, copper. So looking at, the first wine here, I see a wine that I call, a straw color of maybe medium minus intensity. And then that leads into a little bit of a silver and then maybe a green edge. These are all clues that give, ideas of climate, maybe variety of the grape. It's really nice. So, I can maybe deduct that that's from a cooler climate or it's from a grape variety that tends to have those features about it. The second wine, as you look, is a little deeper in color. I'd say this is more of either a deep yellow or a pale gold. But as you can see on the rim, it leads into, a much deeper sort of copper hue. And once again, this could be a couple of different things. It could be oak aging. It could be the varietal. It could be the winemaker's choice of leaving the wine skins in contact with the juice to extract more color. So all these are valuable clues as you're trying to, figure out what the wine is. And, in this deductive process, it's a bit of a puzzle piece. So every little clue adds up and leads, to your ability to come to conclusion. So another part of this process is looking at the extract or tiering. You'll see in this wine, maybe it shows up well, but as I sort of swirled the wine around just a little bit, you could see that there's some things that stick to the side of the glass. And, this is either a function of, residual sugar kind of left in the wine that creates a little viscosity. Alcohol, higher alcohol tends to lead to, larger tears. There's viscosity on that, or what they call dry extract. All right, so, and on the second wine, you'll see this process as well. And oddly enough, a little deeper color, but I find this wine to have a little sort of, the viscosity is a little less. So that's kind of an interesting paradox. And the last thing you want to look at is whether or not there's any gas or any kind of residual bubbles in the wine. There are some wines that are, bottled with a little CO2 at the end of production, or there's a little what they call unresolved CO2 in the wines. Things like Vino Verde, you find it in Albarino, maybe some Gewürztrainers. What am I saying? Grüner Veltliners. And that's, kind of an indication of what the wine is. So that's it for white wine. So just basics, your base colors for white are straw yellow gold. The secondary hues range from silver, green, copper, and they give you indications on how and where the wine came from. So now we'll look at sight for red wines. The same principles still apply. We're looking for clarity, whether or not there's visible sediment. We're looking for concentration, color of the wine, secondary colors, rim variation, extract staining. We'll look at the tiering and, evidence for gas. But red wines are, a little more fun. There's a little more information to gather, I think. Once again, we have two wines that are, a bit of contrasting qualities, and we'll just break it down and take a look at them. So the first wine, is a red wine, obviously, but this is interesting. So it has like a ruby core that I'd call medium concentration, and then the rim variation leads to, a little bit of a lighter orange hue. And, this is telling for a couple of reasons. This could be a wine of age. It could be a wine that was deliberately exposed to oxidation. There's a couple of regions where you can find that through their disciplinary or regulations that require longer aging periods in oak barrel. The secondary colors, on this wine tend to be a little more extended. A younger wine would have a core that extends more to the rim, so this suggests that maybe there's a little aging to the process. If we look at kind of the extract or staining here, not a lot of staining on the glass, not really much of any, but you do see, the tears are, a little thick. So this could be a wine that, maybe has a little bit of elevated alcohol levels, which, is a good indicator of what it is. And there's no real evidence of gas. So I would call this, a ruby red of medium concentration leading to a garnet rim, medium viscosity, medium tears, with no evidence of gas, and it's clear. You see that it's reflecting light, and that's that's an indication of acidity. I didn't really talk about it on the white wines, but the more reflective a wine is, it's an indication that it has kind of lower pH levels and maybe has a little more acidity. Red wines, as opposed to deep purple wines, tend to show a little more acidity. So looking at the second wine, this wine obviously a little more concentrated in color. It's a deeper purple leading to a red rim. Just to go back to basics, the three color ranges, or the color ranges for red range from, purple, ruby to garnet, and then the hues range from blue, ruby, pink to garnet. So, this is a purple wine, has a little bit of a pink edge on the rim, transitioning to a little bit of a ruby. But if you see, the core of the wine is much deeper, and it extends, almost to the edge of the rim there. And, what that tells you is maybe, this is a wine, it's a wine of, a deep, thick-skinned varietal, but it's also maybe a younger wine. And if you just look, through the top of it, you see that there's a good reflective quality to the wine. Shows some acidity, but it's definitely clear. So wine number 2 is a red wine. It's deep purple leading to a pink rim. There is staining as you swirl. You can see that there's literally some red staining on the glass, and as you can see, the viscosity is very high. So it could be a combination of things. It could be higher alcohol levels, a little bit of sort of dry extracts left in the wine. Could be residual sweetness, and there's no evidence of gas. All very important clues. Wine number 1 tends to be sort of bright red in color. Could be suggested of something coming from a cooler climate. Given the transition from ruby to garnet, could be an older wine, could be a wine that's purposely aged in larger oak vessels, promoting some oxidation. And if you look at wine number 2, deep purple wine, a little less reflective, could be a wine that comes from a warmer climate, lots of concentration there, higher alcohol levels, all telling signs of what could lay in the glass. So once again, a quick recap on red wines. Your base colors are purple, ruby, garnet. Your secondary hues are blue, ruby, pink, garnet. But as we travel this deductive process, these are all little brilliant clues that can help direct you to your final conclusion. So next week we'll look at the nose components of deductive tasting, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.